Today's lesson is going to be on the 6 steps to completely build accessible PDF forms using InDesign. We will be covering how to create layers, how to deal with paragraph styles, setting up your artwork as artifacts, using interactive form elements, setting the tab order, and finally the export settings. Let's start with creating layers. The reason we create layers in InDesign is so that we can control the content and make sure that the elements are built in a similar way, but they're not going to interact in a similar way in the form. So we start with a type layer, which basically gives us the layout of how the text is going to appear on the screen, and then we work on the artwork, which we actually layer under the type layer like this. And then finally we build in the form elements on top of that. Alright, I'm now in InDesign and I'm going to show you how you build a set of layers. First of all, you're going to go to your workspaces and you're going to choose typography. So it says typography right here, and then you'll have over here on the right, you'll see it will say layers, and when you click on layers, this panel opens. Now to add a layer, you click on this button down here, and then it will pop up, and it will usually be numbered layer, whatever layer you're on, and then you can double click on that and it will open up and you can call it whatever you want, and we'll just call this outline. And you can see you can set the color of what the layer is going to look like in relation to the others. But the important thing is that you have the ability to turn on and off the vision of those layers by clicking on these eyeballs. See, if I turn them all off, then all I have left is the outline. Now I cannot edit any of these layers unless I have this lock unlocked like this. So if I put them back up now and I start messing with the form, I can interfere with all these layers, so that's why you keep them locked. In building your form, you should start with a type layer, and it should look something like this, except for you may just have black text on a white background here instead of white like I do. And that was because I designed the artifact layer afterwards. And when I put the artifact layer in, you see that the green boxes show up behind the text. So to get that to change, I can just move this, drag this up and down. Now the artifact layer is on top of the text. Okay, so this is why you set up your layers, and it is so that you can control what you're working on and at what time. And if you ever need to delete a layer, you click on a layer and then click the delete button right here. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to design paragraph styles so that you can build semantic structure into your form. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure you're on the typography workspace. Then you're going to have your type layer, and you're going to turn off the other layers and unlock the type layer so that you can work within it. Anytime you want to add a form, description, or title, or any kind of text to the screen, you're going to have to press this type tool or press the letter T. And so I'm just going to drag a box up here and show you that I can type in here. And the font is set at a basic paragraph style. To look at that, you go over here to paragraph styles, and you'll see it says paragraph style. As soon as I make an alteration to this, it's going to have a little plus added. So if I add size to the font, you'll see there's a little plus. If I change the font to some other style of font, or any of these metrics up here for the spacing between the fonts, the height of the paragraphs, or the color. So here is the color right here. So it says fill. So if I click on that and I choose any color, you'll see that it still just has a little plus here. And on screen you see it's now red. Now if I want to add that as a paragraph style for semantic purposes, so that it gives a screen reader structure with which to navigate the form, and in this case I have the title navigation spot, this part of the form, this part of the form, this one, this one, this one, and finally this one down here. But if I'm going to add that structure, I take that basic paragraph with the plus and then I click on this little icon down here, and it creates a new paragraph style 1, and I double click on that and I'll call this red heading. And then that doesn't produce a PDF with the style that we want. It just produces the paragraph style inside of InDesign. To do the PDF portion, you go down here to export tagging and you change your PDF tag to whatever level you want that to be. And there's 6 levels. And so since this is a level 2 heading, I just click OK after setting H2. And so you basically are going to see that each one of these paragraphs that I have, if I click on each one of these, you'll see that it has a structure. And these are the semantic navigation points in the document, and they're all set for heading level 2. Each one of these white spaces. And of course the title here is going to be the heading 1. And it looks like I've made an alteration to it some way along the line here. So if you don't like a particular heading, you can always click on it and it will show up over here on the paragraph styles, and then you can click the delete and you can remove it. But the point of this is so you understand that when someone's reading a form, they're going to want to have semantic structure in which to use a keystroke so that they can determine which section of the form they're actually filling out, rather than just having to look at the form as one lengthy thing. The third thing we're going to talk about is using your artwork as a artifact rather than having them marked up with alt tags with actual descriptions of the art. For a form, usually the artwork is just set there so that you can add visual structure to the form. So let's take a look. One of the great things about using InDesign is that you can use some of the tools to give yourself some precision. And I'm here on the artifact layer now, and I'm going to turn that on so I can actually alter it. And I use the artifact layer, the art layer, to build the design so that I can have a visual reference for where I'm putting the text and where I'm putting the form fields. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn on the view here for guides and grids, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to show the document grid. And if I enlarge that a bit, you'll be able to see that there are these little boxes, and so if I add anything to the form, like let's add a box and then put a fill in it. Let's put a yellow fill, and then let's take the line off. So the way you do that is you can either do it here where it says none, or over here you click on that line and click none. And so the artifact layer allows me to put the artwork in place, and what I choose to do, you see how it's run over here into the raccoon's head, so I'm going to have to adjust it a bit. But to get it to be precise, I lay it on that grid and put it exactly where I want it, and you can use these tools to get it to fit exactly in the grid space that you want. And that's a great way for you to do design. Now the point of this is that all the artwork, and I'm going to have to go back to view, and then I'm going to have to fit this form in the window so I can select it all. So once you place all your lines, which you would use either the pen tool or the line tool to create, and you can also use these alignment tools up here to line your lines to each other and the sides of the lines as well. But the point is that you select all the content in your art layer here, the artifact layer, and then you're going to go up to Object, Object Export Options, and then you're going to select this tab here for Tag PDF, and you're going to apply the tag Artifact. And when you click Done, all the art references in your form are going to be so that a screen reader won't see them and be disturbed by them, and all your sighted people will be able to see these references, as will you when you're designing your forms, because you want to put your form fields on top of these lines so that they have reference points, and it gives them a guide to how long they should be and how wide they should be. And when you're done, make sure you go back to View and go to Guides and Grids and turn off the grid. So hide the document grid. The next piece we're going to talk about is laying in your interactive form elements and how to do that in InDesign so that you can create a fillable PDF that's accessible. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is how to put in the interactive forms. So here is the form layer that I've already built, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that one off so I can show you how to actually create a layer with the form content in it. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to double click on that and call it New Form. I'm going to click OK. So when I have that selected and there's no lock on it, I can actually start creating forms. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to Window, and you're going to come down to Interactive right here, and you're going to slide over until you see Button and Forms. You click that and you get this pop-up right here. What you want to do is you want to get this tool over here, the rectangle frame tool, and you want to draw from your line into the space for your first form field. And you want to do these in the exact order of the text as it's read. So you create first name, then last name, and address line, and so forth. You want these form fields to follow exactly in that same precise order. And when you have it selected, you can then change the type of it. So here it's just a text field, and so I just click that. And of course I'm going to quickly go through and add the rest of the text fields for this section of the form. So we've come to the first field that isn't a text field, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw our little box in here, and we're going to make it small because it's only going to contain 2 characters. So when I release the mouse and I have to go back to the interactive layer, to buttons and forms, and that's selected, I change the type to a combo box. And then down here, the name of the combo box, which I haven't talked about naming the fields yet, but basically you're just going to name the fields what the text says for them. However, down here in the description, each time that you have a field that you're describing, you should give instructions for someone who's using a screen reader so they know what to put in this field. So enter the state from list. Okay, so the list isn't built yet. So in this case, since we're just doing a quick video here, and I'm going to type in NC SC and VI. So that gives a list of 3 states that people can select from. Other thing you should know about creating these forms is that if you click required, every time a screen reader hits one of these, it's going to tell the person that information as well. You can also sort your list in the combo box. So if you want to put them in alphabetical order, you just click sort items. You can set the font and the size right here as well. Now I'm going to put one more field in here, and this is the zip code field, and again that type is a text field. The next set is going to be checkboxes that people can choose which one of these or more than one of these they can use as the preferred contact method. So when I draw the little box in here, and again I try to keep these consistent, so when I make the first one and turn it into a checkbox, I'm going to call this preferred email. And when I get done with that one and I click on it like this and hold down the Alt key, I can drag that one over and it will duplicate it. The problem with that is it will have the same information as the name, and so I don't want that. And it's the same thing with the description, but it's the quick way to make 4 quick checkboxes. So here, instead of preferred email, we want preferred phone, and so forth. And so that's how we basically build these. Again, the most important accessibility component is this description. Now this is really wordy, and so when a screen reader gets to this and they are going to select one of these checkboxes, this is going to say if you prefer to receive contact information via email, and then if you prefer to receive contact information via phone. You don't need to do that. You can just say contact by email and keep it as short as possible. And you can copy this description here, and you can put the content into the next one, but just by clicking on it. And again, to duplicate it, you put your pointer on it and then hold down the Alt key and drag across, and that will give us the text message, and then drag again with Alt key held and you'll get post-email. Of course you'll have to change the titles up here. So it says preferred phone, so now we want preferred text message. Again, you want to take the description as the most important part of the accessibility information because it's being read by the screen reader as it goes through the form. Now, there's one more element to these checkboxes that you should know, and that is their appearance. If they are already checked like this, then the person receiving the form is going to see those checks, and the person with the screen reader is going to hear that it's already checked. So you might want to turn them off so that they have to actually manually do the check boxes when they receive the form to fill out. So this is how I would set it up. Again, the information that you add down here, whether it's required, is important because it just adds more content that a screen reader will have to listen to. And so I would not put required on any of these fields. Depending on how you made your form, you will either be doing the preferred lodging section. If you made this text first, you want to do that. But in my case, I actually made the camper information. So I'm going to quickly add in 3 text fields, and I'm just going to do that as fast as possible. The next field that we're going to do is the age field, and the age field is a different type of field. It's very similar to the combo box. It's going to be called a list box. And what we're going to have is we're going to have a list of items. So we'll call the name here age. And then down here we're going to list the ages of the children that can be attending the camp, since there's an age limitation. Once we have the list built, we select one of the ages to be the default. We also need to put in a description so that the screen reader will know where they're at. That brings us now to the radio buttons for sex. So we're going to draw a little box here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and drag that box, and then go to the buttons and forms and change it to radial button. Now the radial button name for both of these buttons is going to be sex, but down here for the description you put in the name that they get to choose, male or female. And again, you probably want to turn off appearance. So here I have male, and then I'm going to use the Alt key and drag that down, and it still says male, but now I just type over it. So that's how you do the radial buttons, and I would do the same for Pup Tent, Double Dog Tent, Cozy Cabin, and the Big Daddy Dorm over here for this section for lodging. I'm going to skip these three fields, but I'm going to come down here to medical conditions and add one more field so you can see how to make it scrollable. So basically you add your field, change it to type, text field, and in this case this is the medical conditions, and then you want to have this tick checked for scrollable. The last thing we're going to cover are buttons, and so we're going to take our box and we're going to draw it around this graphic of a submit button, and we need to change the type here in buttons and forms to button, and then we need to give it an action. So the action is this plus. You click on this and then you have these different choices that you can do, and in this case we want to use the submit form, and we want to call the name of the button submit and add a description. And that is all for the interactive forms content. I'm going to go back to my layers and hide this layer and show you that the form is completely done here. I had some more checkboxes over here that I did, and another field over here for the credit card, but basically you've got your form all ready to go, and we're going to go to the next step now. The tab order is something that you can set up to read your form in a specific way for those using a keyboard or a screen reader. To look at your tab order for your form content, you're going to have to unlock the form content layer. Then you're going to go to Object, Interactive, Set Tab Order. You'll see that this list shows all of the different fields that we've already created, and if I click on one, I can then move it up or down depending on where it is. If I click on the field over here, I can't do anything. I can only set the tab order in this dialog box over here. So if something's out of place, you're going to have to know, first of all, like I said, you have to have your names so that you can figure out which field is which. And so you just click on a field and then click move up or down, and that's all there is to it. Finally, we're going to get to export settings so that you can save your work you've done in InDesign into that PDF fillable form. Once you have your form all together, you're going to have to export it to PDF. You're going to go to the File menu, and you're going to go down here to Export. You then want to change the type to Adobe PDF Interactive, and you want to title what you're calling your form. Then you click Save. This will bring up the Export to Interactive PDF dialog box, and the thing you need to make sure is ticked is this Create Tagged PDF, and you can then set the viewing if you like. In this case I want it to fit the width of the page and just have, it's a single page form, so that's good. And then I just click Export. And in this document, I have some color that is specifically going to convert into the RGB for the interactive PDF form, and I click OK. And the Raccoon application is completed and will show up on your screen as a PDF file. You can send this out and have people fill it out, and you'll get the information you need back. So that is how you make an accessible PDF fillable form using InDesign.